record on this. Welcome back. May 8th, Sunday. It's your TA report with GP, Nick, GFDI, and Bags. Yeah, that was some kind of week we had last week. We are starting to get somewhat bullish, but in the end, the S&P 500 didn't. I mean, it closed below the prior week, but it closed right on the low of the prior week. So, I think there was a lot of maybe seesaw action after the Fed announcement. Nick, you think we're going to zero? That's what I hear.
That's not what I'm saying. I thought it was an interesting week because, a lot of the times when the Fed comes out, that first move is typically the false move. And I saw so many people kind of like, tweeting that. And then as soon as we started ripping, exactly, it's exactly what happened. And like, as soon as we started ripping, it was like, oh no, everybody forgot about it. By no means did I expect that rollover the following day in the way that it did. It didn't surprise me though either, just based on the action that we've been seeing.
There's no liquidity in the system, Nick. So
yeah,
it's just every opportunity to play. Like that's a week like 742 that not a single call has expired in the money, and that's all puts, right? Like and people are calling exactly what's going to happen, and then it happens. This market's it's interesting, but I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love everyone's point of view and perspective, other than the people that think we're literally about to implode and go to zero. A lot of the guys, even the longer term investors that I kind of resonate with are kind of fall into the investors, business daily guys and Market Smith. And it's like, I mean, at this point, especially for the guys that are in the camp that are relatively new, that are getting chopped up, it's like, yo, just wait for the market to bottom out and put in a follow through day. Like that's like, IBD hammers that into you. Just wait for the follow through day. Like you don't need to be the first one racing in here. That being said, I still think that we're heading lower. But I'm also the kind of dude that shits optimism here. Like the longer this correction lasts, the bigger and the more of a monster rally that I think is going to come from this.
You're still looking like that undercut of 400 though, right? Like
yeah.
I mean, the past few weeks, you thought 400 on the S&P, likely just a shade below that, and then 300 on the Qs with just a shade below that, possibly, right? I mean, so we're still working on that thesis.
Yeah, I think those round numbers are kind of a magnet. I think that we, just in my opinion, I think we bottom out somewhere in like on the S&P or the SPYs, anywhere between kind of like that 350 and 380 zone. I know it's kind of a big zone, 30 point range there. It's just we're also talking about time here too. Like we could chop, roll, move sideways. Again, I mean, we kind of go back to this. Individual equities have been absolutely clobbered. So I'm bearish, I guess I could say, but I'm also very optimistic coming out of this thing too. Sorry, GP,
we had a washout day on Thursday, 96% downside day.
Yeah, I saw that.
So like what you should be looking for now is not like a breakdown, but essentially a follow through day with a 90% plus upside day, or not even 90, man. It's just, you got to see the breadth, right? The breadth has to be strong across the board.
What would you see leading in that scenario? So like sectors.
I'm a little dumbfounded by some of the strength in some of the names that are like, so XLE is another one, right? Like
Energy.
yeah, I'll go to energy, but like if you add the volume profile in there,
Oh,
right?
Yeah, it's
Like
wiped
and
it.
you go this on a weekly or monthly basis, it hit a monthly volume profile and barely flinched. Right? On my charts,
monthly.
that is. I don't. Right? That's a massive volume profile, right? Like that's
Yeah.
it literally flinched for half a month and then blew right through it in the first week, right?
Yeah.
And that's after what, a 500% move from the bottom.
I know.
So like in my world, this is strong, right? I was wrong on this trade. I took a few shots at the short because it was in a massive resistance zone that it should have typically had a few month pullback, and it blew right through it, right? And that was Friday's thing, right? Friday, even as the market was dying at the end of the day, energy was rocking up, right?
Yep.
Like hard. So part of me thinks this was the final kind of like push to get everyone super bullish and then pull the rug on Monday. But I've been thinking that for a while. So to be fair, I've just been wrong, right? It's pushing through, and it's not consolidating after a 500% move, right? Like this is going to end badly. Fine if it continues to go up. At some point, this gets rocked.
Well, but then, I mean, we can put the shoe on the other foot and say, you know, when tech and, you know, high growth and no earnings was going through the roof. I mean, people said all of, you know, the second half of 2020, this is going to end bad. All of 2021, this is going to end bad. And when did we peak? In November of 2021. So
on the market, but not on stocks.
Just because this is going higher doesn't mean that it can't continue to go higher for a while. I've been wrong on the XLE party too, or on the energy party too. But I think it was 3 weeks ago, I was like, guys, this still looks bullish to me. And I know we had a pullback the week before last, but geez, man, like there, what?
Looking at the monthly, I mean, could you argue that it's about to break out of
Yes.
would that be a secular bear market?
Yes.
I could argue that 91 is going to be the right shoulder as well. What do you like? What are we going to argue?
Oh, I see that. I can see that too.
Right, like this is your kind of blow. It's a 500% move. I get it. It's underpriced. It's been people are under invested in energy, but it's a 500% move with some decent volume kicking in, and 91 is an area where there's not a lot of volume support, right?
I hear you.
Looking at the volume profile here.
I hear you, but that's still 10% more upside. I mean, people are down anywhere from 20 to 80% right now, right? If they're long, you know, 10% might be a good gain to get. And this is not investment advice, and I'm not taking it. But at the same time, if we're looking at 91, like we're still 10% away from that.
Oh, and like I started with, I'm wrong, right? Like I didn't start.
No, I'm
right.
not beating you up for being wrong. I'm just saying, like, there's still meat on the bone. If this is a trade that you like, and from what I look at the chart, like, yeah, it could be a right shoulder, but it could be the start of, you know, even more parabolic of a move.
That's kind of the camp I don't know. It's kind of the camp I'm in right now. I guess I'm the names that I'm in, Oxy, XOM, DBN, like I got BTN R2 and a little bit of the USO. I'm kind of in this trade, I think, to see if this is a monster. I don't think I'm going to be looking to leg into these until I see if the XLE heads into new highs, but
yeah,
I'm kind of with you, GP2. Like that's a major that even that 88 to 91 area, I'm kind of with you, could definitely pose for some trouble.
And 84 could be too, right? Like if you're looking at 84, that's kind of where this big downtrend began. That was the big sell-off back in 2015, right?
Yep.
It's been strong. So I'm not saying short it here. I'm saying watch and see what happens. If it starts to find like some serious resistance at one of these levels, then it's probably going to end up being a decent short for
Yeah.
the reason of how parabolic it's been, right? Like we've seen it across all the tech stocks. I'm not saying it can't go to 200 in the process. And I tried a few shorts because it was in a massive volume range. But once it broke out, like I obviously have a service, one of my members was asking me, he's like, I want to short XLE. I'm like, not now, right? It's literally, it's busted through resistance in less than a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about multi-decade resistance here, right? Like I'm not talking about 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I
And
mean,
so
just-
like that is the indication of strength. And you just have to step out of the way until it's ready to take it to the other side.
I mean, just look at the sectors. XLF, you know, better than 2/3% higher on the week. Industrials, a fourth or 0.4%. XLK, negative 0.6%. XLV, almost 0.4%. Consumer discretionary down 2.9. That's largely led by Amazon, right? Most likely. So I hate to say it, but what's been working for the last 4 months has been energy and financials. Financials still look like they're rolling over to me, but it's better than most.
Apple's been working
But well,
like
yeah,
sideways, but it's
in
been strong.
individual names, yes, Apple has
Yeah.
still been working. Yeah.
But like, so coming out of like all of this stuff, right? Whenever this going to zero ends, or this correction ends, or whatever you want to call of this conversation, there's a few stocks, Nick, you're asking. The
Yeah.
ones that kind of stand out to me are Datadog and Bill.com, right? And it didn't matter. They sold both of those off on incredible earnings, even through this recession, right? So you're talking about back-to-back incredible earnings from both of these companies over a uncertain economic period in time. So like once all of this kind of resolves and we find some kind of bottom or basing patterns, these are the ones I'm going to be looking at in terms of long-term kind of investments, like the new leadership, the new FANG, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be like, I don't know, call it bad. Bill, Apple will always be there apparently, and Datadog.
Call it bad. I like it. I was getting ready to throw a snarky remark your way there, GP. Just like if they don't give a shit about Microsoft's earnings, they don't care about Datadog or Bill.com. But when I brought up the Microsoft, hey Nick, look what I see. Would you call that a 4 week? Would you call that a 4 week tight?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, show. Bottom
No,
of the
but in
range,
this market, that's a bear flag.
flag. Totally.
Yeah.
Bear
So, like,
flag.
Here's like, that's kind of one of those things that like I think come with time, GP. Like, you know, it's recognizing those things like, are we strong in the morning and selling off in the afternoons, or are we weak in the morning and rallying in the afternoons? Same thing. Like if we're in an uptrend, I'm looking for bearish patterns, and I want to see those bearish patterns like fail. Vice versa, and it's kind of a same thing here too. Like, yeah, it's a 3 week tight, but we're also trending down. So I'm with you. We're much more in the camp of bear flag.
Yeah, so I was joking on the bear flag, but
I don't know.
So what I will say is over the last 2 weeks, or maybe last 2.5 weeks, the end of days for a lot of, including indices, has been pretty bullish, right? Like it started with, I think, last Friday, not this just Friday that happened, but the Friday before that. So a week and a half, maybe. We during real time hours, we take a massive dump. And then right before close, we have some massive, like it was the second highest contract volume in the NQs since the big collapse happened on January 24th, right? And like if you see the volume that's coming in, it's pretty heavy at the end of the day. Could be short covering, could be anything. I don't know, but it's been weak during like 9:30 to 3:45, and then all of a sudden gets strength, right? It's been
Yeah.
interesting to watch on some of this stuff.
While you guys are talking, I'm just flashing through some charts, and Taiwan Semi's flashing a big old Batman symbol out there. Look at that Batman head.
Yeah. And if you now take if we're talking about analogs, if you take the Qs and take a look at the Qs current situation and take a look at how it looked in 2018, now it's looking even more similar.
Yeah, I see that.
You talking this
Into
right,
the
this right
Yeah.
here, and this right here.
Yep. Right, it's even looking a little bit more similar. There's a lot of analogs. None of this stuff is going to be the exact same. I am in the camp that the Fed can't really do much about inflation, so we just have to see supply side pick up, and the only thing they can do is demand side, and demand side potentially causes a recession, if not worse, on their side.
Oh no,
The
you're
only thing
talking. You're
that-
talking this. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
already
yeah.
what? Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't looking exactly, but yeah, that was like the three peaks kind of sell off, and we just had this 17.5% move from end of March, right? Straight down from the end of March highs at 371.38 to what, 305.11. It was about 17.6% or so. So, but that required a Fed pivot. That's what caused that massive
Yep.
kind of turn there, right? And the Fed is probably not going to pivot. Given
That's
their
what I was
current-
getting ready to say. I don't think we're about to experience a Fed pivot.
Yeah, but what you can
They don't want the
experience is
Bags
end of the
family to
war,
buy an
right?
affordable house on the cheap.
But you can experience end of the war.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can experience. Doesn't necessarily have to be Fed pivot, right? Or it could be CPI data coming in drastically lower on inflation.
And that's what we were talking about, right before we went on, and right before Nick joined us, was I kind of feel like inflation is or has peaked. I know we eat bacon here in the Bags family, and I have to buy a pound of bacon every week, and it's gone from $9.99 a pound down to $6.99 a pound. Before inflation started, when it was on sale, I could get it for $5.99 a pound. And that's just pork, right? That's a pork indicator. That's not necessarily everything indicator. But I was looking at some used cars, and it seems like I would get less for my used car right now, and I would still be paying a little bit less for a used car. So that was some homework that I did this weekend. So I kind of feel like the inflation is starting to pull in a little bit. Again, it'll be interesting to see what that CPI data is, but my real world seeing what's happening kind of tells me that.
Do you guys
And that's enough to spark so my thought process has been during this whole time is that we are going to see a prolonged kind of secular bear, but before that happened was a massive face ripping rally where you're kind of locked out, right? You're not going to believe it the whole way up, and we take out all-time highs. You get to a point where you get really bullish, and that hasn't happened. So to be fair, I've been wrong about that, but we're also not really breaking down. We are hitting levels and pivots. So there's an inherent, and we're at VIX, what, 30, 31, 30, right? These are historically high numbers, right? For the VIX to be elevated this high. We've peaked into like the above 30s, but it doesn't last very long, maybe a week or two, right? We haven't seen that spike in volatility. So there's an inherent support around this level. And on Friday, we tagged the opening week lows of 2021, right? I think the low of that first week was 305.18. It's that hammer candle right off the 20 you have there. You see the green
On the Qs?
Yeah, on the Qs.
305.
Just go to the beginning of 2021.
2021. Yes, sir.
That hammer candle right there. Yep. That's the opening of the year. And it essentially tagged that, undercut it by 7 cents, and then closed above it.
305.18.
And look at the amount of volume that's coming in, yet we still can't really break down. So there's a lot of conflicting stuff. Right now, it's best to just kind of watch to see. I have long positions I've established. They are underwater, unfortunately. Not too bad because I got them down here, except for Amazon, which is just taking a crap constantly.
That's the stock we shall remain nameless until.
Yeah, but like I'm in Facebook from like 185, so I'm still doing okay on Facebook, and I'm doing okay on on other names as well. But it's literally the inverse of the 2018 to 2020 breakout.
I heard an interesting. I'm no economist, so I don't claim to be, but I was watching. You guys follow Downtown Josh Brown, dude.
Yeah.
I was watching his podcast because he had on this guy named Nicholas Colas, who's like an ex SAC Capital guy.
Okay.
And anyways, the quote that he had said, or what I pulled from it, was I'm kind of relating to like the job market, and with how crazy it's been in terms of trying to hire people. Pretty much, I mean, everywhere is looking to hire. What he said was that in a recessionary period, the power is removed from the employees and it's given back to the employers. And so I don't know what that means in terms of what the Fed's going to do, but I guess kind of what I'm getting at is that is there still a lot of complacency out there? Is there still a lot of
complacency in the market, or complacency in potential job seekers or employees?
Across the board, everywhere.
Right. So, for example, let's say if you've invested in Amazon before 2018, right? Let's take example of Amazon, one of a large holding of many institutions. If you're in from the 2 to 300 range or 2 to 500 range, are you really selling here?
Yeah, no.
Right? Like you're going to look for opportunities to get back in because they're massively growing. Their AWS is still growing at 37 or 38%. They're the leader in the cloud space, and they're about to break $1 trillion valuation. They're very close to it. And Microsoft gets a $2 trillion valuation. So I can't imagine someone looking at Amazon saying, I got to liquidate the boat. It's possible. But if you're in from like $200 to $300 or 2 to 500, and you're up 300-400% now, I can't imagine you liquidating now. But if it gets down to like 1,600-1,700, then you'll start to get.
Yeah, I mean, heck, if you're in from $1,000, which is roughly the price of that 2018 precipitous decline that we pointed out earlier, I mean, why would you sell Amazon down here? And Amazon could easily reach that $2,000 level, but why if you're in $1,000 or under, are you considering that?
Yeah, and I think that's where Nick's complacency is. So they can continue to beat this down until it gets to levels where people start to get nervous and then sell at that point, right? They're like, well, I'm going to lock in my gains because I still have 100%. And that can cause more selling. I think the oddest part for me, and this guy I follow on Twitter is James Jude, said it is everyone is expecting this and yet it's still happening, right?
Yeah.
That's been the crazy part of this. Like everyone's like, market's going to crash, everything's going to zero. And they're right in terms of price action because it keeps falling and puts are getting paid weekly, daily, every other day. So like I've never seen consensus be so consensusful, and I know that's not a word, and right. But like even like during the 2020 kind of like 2021 movement up in stocks, there was a lot of stocks that did nothing. Amazon, as we talk about, peaked in July of 2020.
Yep.
They got 2 months of the revolution, the meme revolution, 2 months or 3 months.
Yeah.
So like at the same time, like I don't know where, like I don't trade a lot of the meme stocks because I just don't like the parabolic. I stick to what I know, and the ones that I know weren't like parabolic by any means, right?
I haven't gone
Definitely
through
been
my
a learning
Excel
journey.
watch list
Yeah, no doubt about it.
in probably over a month, and it's just crazy at some of the wealth destruction that's going on for longs. It's crazy.
It is. I'm thinking about the hodl thing, and I'm just like, man, even long-term investors, need sell rules at some point. I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in a stock that, like, let's say you're buying it 30, $50, it rips to 200, and you round trip that thing back to $50. I don't have the stomach for that. I couldn't do it.
So I've done it. I did it with Tesla. I bought it like between 180 and 200 back in 2014 before the split, right? And I watched it go up to 380, 390, and then come right back down to 170. So I went from like nearly 100% gain back down to 0% gain. And I asked myself at that point has my investment thesis changed?
Sure.
No. Then what am I doing trying to sell it just because I didn't capture the gains? Right? My resolution is that my thought process was that their cars are exactly what people want, even though there's so much hate out there. The experience, the whole kind of shebang, and that's after test driving, after seeing friends, after having family ownership, that it just kind of made sense for the long term. So when the price came back to the levels that I thought were gonna never come back to, I added more. I didn't sell more, right? So
Sure.
it really depends on your investment thesis. Look, if your investment thesis has changed, then absolutely get out. But if your investment thesis hasn't, and the only thing that has changed is price, then you're getting an opportunity to rebuy, right?
Definitely.
And to add to your, so like it really depends. Buffett's a great example. He hasn't sold, I don't think he's sold any Coke in all these years, right? He's been holding for how many years now?
Jeez, really?
Multiple decades? Maybe I'm wrong on that, but if he's sold, it's probably to trim a little bit, but he still holds a sizable position in some of the names that he has full conviction on, regardless of what they do 1 month, 6 months, 2 years out.
Yeah, I guess different styles, different strategy for sure.
Yeah,
guess,
you're an active trader. He's a passive investor, right?
For sure.
So it's a different.
I'll be honest, man. If I aspire to have the stomach that you do one day. Like I do. Like I don't say that like sarcastically at all. Like if I could hold like that, I would be extremely happy.
No, listen, me and Dews were on DM when the whole Tesla meltdown was happening, and we were like, what the hell, right? Like, I'm not gonna act like I was all chill and relaxed. It was frustrating to watch that as a long-term believer in the company, someone who came on board 3 days ago gets the same returns I do.
Sure.
Right? Like, so it was hard to battle that. There was a lot of mental stuff that happened there, but I tried to bring it down to why I invested, right? I invested in it because I saw the future of the company and I saw where it was going. So I actually at that time didn't have a lot of cash available to invest in Tesla. So I actually sold all my Apple to buy more Tesla, right? Like it was a big decision to do.
Yeah.
This was my depiction of buying the dip on Netflix at the end of the year. he's like, yeah, I did it. I bought the dip. Netflix, $600. What a deal. And now it's $180. And he's like, oh, I fell off Angel Falls. I'm dead.
How epic was that first call that we had in January now?
I was
On
getting
Netflix.
that's why I was getting ready to bring that up. That's the reason why I went to Netflix GP. You know, at that time, your thesis on Netflix here was bull market indicator, right? And yeah, it just if Netflix is an indicator of what the rest of high growth and tech's going to be, that's not so great.
Yeah, so I think what we talked about on that call itself was if the question was whether Netflix would carry into other stocks, and we're now starting to see that.
In fairness, you're correct.
Yeah. It's whether it remains a bull market indicator or not. That was one of the things, and spot on, dude. We had both the gap downs. It's the same as 2011, but the magnitude is higher though. That's the only difference of the move down.
That is one nasty looking chart, man.
Yeah, the weird thing is the 80% down in 2011 didn't even look as bad as this. This looks awful.
I mean, I can make an argument that we might be sitting at a support there. I'm not touching it, but maybe, who knows?
At some point it does. They're free cash flow positive. They're a mature company now, and they're trading at what, 83 or 84 billion.
I mean, I just eyeballed that, right? So I'm going from basically two top resistance becomes support. It tested that support, right? For those who have missed a real chart learning session here, allow me to reply with, okay, so there's a resistance, right? Resistance becomes support after it breaks out. So maybe, I mean, I'm not saying it is, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And full disclosure, I added Netflix around 200. I'm down right now, but I'm not worried about it too much, right? In terms of
Ackman's worried about it. He got out. He said, F this.
Yeah. Where's Cuban long from?
Oh, I don't even know.
I remember Cuban doing a big old tweet.
He's probably gonna come out and say he's liquidated at 700 because that's what people do.
He seems to be much more into crypto lately. Yeah.
Let's talk crypto or at some point, I guess, if you guys don't mind.
Well, no, I mean, let's go for it. It looks like it was shit by a short goat off a tall cliff right now.
It took me a minute to picture that, but I can see it.
So this was the support that we had been holding, right, in Bitcoin, and we're below it now. We haven't completed the weekly. We still got about 2 hours and 15 minutes. But yeah, no bueno, and all bets are off. You know, I'm going to say below 31.5 or so, Nick, just to keep it 100 with you, Pally. I added some DOT. So I added DOT at 14. I've got another order in at 13. It came in at 13, like 02 or 04 earlier today, and I thought I was going to get it. And I've got another order in at 12. If it bounces, that's roughly about where 3,200 would be on Bitcoin if my percentages are correct. So I'm playing it for a bounce if it were to happen, but I'm not highly confident that the bounce will be strong enough to be a bounce out at this point. But yeah, I mean, I've been scaling into DOT now for, all year long, all 2022 long. And I just think that, anywhere down here, I mean, we could even come into like 11 something, like 1150 or thereabouts, 1170. So, I think for Polkadot, we could see a bounce because I think we're getting into the really oversold area in general, but not great look. Especially if that doesn't hold, this little wedge that was trying to form here. If that doesn't hold, I don't think it's so great.
Let's say this thing rolls like hard. Would you be a buyer at 20K?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Doesn't that
Yeah.
just seem too obvious now?
It does, and if it comes into 20K, I think it's going to be more like 18K. I would probably put it like right here. But
Not
that's what,
12?
well,
That's
yeah,
kinda where I was
that's
going.
where that's where I was actually getting ready to go next, GP, is, if I throw up that volume profile, get that off there. If I throw up that volume profile, I mean, we're looking at 12.
Yeah.
So while I don't love the 18, 19 range, I would definitely be targeting this area right here into about 11. So let me actually, we'll do
I
some,
think I worry about what's it
we'll do
called?
some live
Monster, is it?
charting.
What MSTR? I don't know the damn name of the company. I always know this symbol.
Oh,
Aren't they leveraged
MicroStrategy.
MicroStrategy, right? So they have a 21,000 level. If it breaks that, isn't that where they have to liquidate?
Yeah, I think so. I know that I'm just going to be really careful of how I say this. I think what they have done and just become a pure Bitcoin play at a premium, probably, it's just in my opinion, it's dangerous to do that. You're putting all your eggs in one basket. I mean, I have a large Bitcoin holding, and I'm proud of that. I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, like, I'm spread across a lot of different assets. So I don't feel like I'm putting all my eggs in one basket at all, even though the gains have been stupid in Bitcoin. I just, that strategy that has been employed, it's hard for me to, rubber stamp that and say that's a smart thing to do. I hope that, I wish everyone who's invested in that very well. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I just, that is not the way I approach trying to build wealth. But some people do that.
Yeah, and before, MicroStrategy was always a dead stock until their Bitcoin investment.
Right.
So I think they're in the either we go big or go home kind of strategy.
Yeah, and again, I know they've got a cult following, and I'm not trying to piss people off. I just, that's not the way I approach, trying to grow my money. But Nick, to be really clear, yeah, I mean, if that 18, 19 area doesn't hold, we'll say from 20 down to 18, if that doesn't hold, I have very little doubts that, from 12 to 10 is definitely achievable. I hope that doesn't happen, but it very well could. And, I've got the money in Bitcoin from below that. Not quite round tripping it the way GP did Tesla, but yeah, that wouldn't feel so great to know that, I had this gain basically that I let go, right? Like 678% you let walk away or thereabouts. But yeah,
bottoms when the last coin is mined. That's my thesis.
Well, I think that can definitely play out that way, GP, because then scarcity is even more. But I just think the way that the halvening happens, right? Like Bitcoin is becoming more scarce, and even though it's being mined and there's still coins out there, we all know that there's an infinite supply. So a finite supply. Anyway, I don't necessarily think it changes from the way it looks right now in 2022 than when it does in 2030. I don't think it's a huge, we know that there's a scarcity already.
Yeah, and I think that what this is for me is, it's a source of funds, right? It's held up better than everything else. If things start to crash more, let's say Amazon gets to 1,500 and you're out of cash, or Amazon gets to 1,000, whatever, right? Wherever this ends, I can see people using funds from this amongst other assets to be able to buy some of these names that are solid and will recover over time, right? That's the thought process, is like, people gotta have to find funds somewhere.
So Nick, just in general, like if we can't recover somewhere here around the 30,000 level, let's say
Yeah.
something like that, I think it's in trouble just the way the chart looks.
The chart looks awful, right?
Yeah,
Like it doesn't lie.
well,
It looks like a double top blow off, breakout, breakdown.
Yeah, you had this exhaustive move to the upside, right? On pretty much low volume. It wasn't anything spectacular. You hit this trend and then you fail these MAs, and now both of those MAs are below the 50. I mean, it's that this candle right here is the one that said, nope, this is not recovering the way in which you would like it to recover. That candle right there. Because it had the opportunity to push back above, and it couldn't even test the trend. It just got flat rejected by the moving averages. So while I'm still a long-term bull, short-term, I mean, you have to call it is what it is. It's very bearish short-term.
Yeah, it looks like almost every chart on the planet except for everything in energy.
And you look at Ethereum, Ethereum's the same thing except on a smaller scale, right? It's I shouldn't say smaller scale, a tighter scale. So very like, I mean, it's almost the same chart, right? Just flashing back and forth.
Yeah.
Let me clear that off real quick. But yeah, just flashing back and forth, like it's almost the same chart. So while Ethereum, has been holding up well, and if we look at the Ethereum Bitcoin, like it's actually showing a little bit more strength than Bitcoin. They're the same chart. I mean, if you can't see the similarities in that, then go get an eye exam.
Crypto.
Not you, Nick. I'm saying whoever's watching.
Yeah. Kind of.
I haven't looked at the shorts in a few days, but yeah, shorts are on the rise. That shouldn't be a surprise. That kind of rhymed. Poet and don't know it. Bitcoin dominance actually weaker. Weaker week over week too. So that's not a good thing. I don't think it's alt season. If it were alt season, I'd be okay with Bitcoin dominance down a little bit more, but it just looks like, I mean, it looks like it wants to flush, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
Wouldn't you call that like, what, I mean, what is that?
It's a bear flag.
Yeah, it looks like it wants to flush. Everything's a bear flag.
Yeah. You know what? I think the only crazy part about a lot of this stuff is, like, outside of crypto, if you're looking at charts in a lot of these names, is like the indicators that we all kind of use, the RSI, the MACDs and stuff like that. These are inherently worse than even during the 2000 crash, when that was truly like a massive bubble, right? Like you're talking about companies that are making like 100 million valued at like 100 billion, so, or not even making any money and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see some of these moves across the board.
I mean, well, let's just use this Bitwise, BitW fund. I mean, if you got in this from its inception, you're right there, right? If you chased it anywhere on its way up, you got that going on. And, that's very crude, but you just broke down big time.
Can we talk about shop at all?
Yeah, we can talk about anything you want to talk about, baby boy.
So, like, I believe this is going to zero.
You believe shop is going to zero? I mean, this looks like Netflix.
It looks worse than Netflix. Shop. Oh my God. They're like, I get it. They're slowing. They're just, this is the one that, like, there is no strength here. It's just dying. There's just no one buying this at all. And it was overvalued for a long time and it stayed overvalued. basically overvalued means that there was more people buying than more people selling, right? That was ultimately what it is. But
There's
it
a lot
just-
of that though. I mean, we can't just point our finger at shop. There's a lot of overvalued.
Shop was the original. It was trading
But
at like
yeah.
100 billion with 1.2
Yeah.
billion in sales.
I mean, I think, you know, when we were experiencing that 2018 fall off, where is that? Like right around here. Yeah, it's like $100. I remember Kramer was pumping the crap out of it too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as much flack as Kramer gets, had you taken that, you're still up, right? You like, let's just say you didn't get the bottom, but you got somewhere in this area. I mean, you're still, hello, is this thing on? There we go. I mean, you're still up 170 some percent, right?
That's
Like,
going to change on Monday when it gaps down to under 100. So don't worry about it. You'll be good. Kramer will
no,
be wrong.
I'm actually giving Kramer some flowers. All the reverse, you know, inverse Kramers out there. I think you just have to be able to understand. I think you just have to read. I've said this before. You just have to read between the lines. I don't stand on everything that Kramer says, but he's it's not like he's put people in, you know, opportunity to buy shit all the time, which is I think what a lot of people try to portray him as. Anyway.
And one of his most brilliant calls, or I think, is you don't trade Apple, you invest in Apple, right? And
Yeah.
that was early 2011 or 12, right? Like you just hold. Apple it's a dominating company, and if you bought anytime before that, even if you experienced a 50% haircut, Apple has crushed it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go back to that 2018, right? And I remember in right around the same time in that January earnings, Apple had a really something was terrible in their earnings report right then. And I mean, you know, after all the splits, I mean, you're looking at $38 right here, which I mean, are you really going to complain about 280% win if you took it off of that earnings?
Yeah.
And that's something that you can hold on to for a generation, right? Like, I mean, I don't think Apple's coming down to a $30, $40 stock anytime soon. Who
Zero.
knows?
Everything's
Who knows?
going to zero. buddy.
Everything's zero. Yeah, you're right. Everything's zero.
Right. So
was
here we
just-
go. I just Googled it. October 23rd, 2012. Don't trade Apple, own it. By Jim Cramer on his Mad Money show. That was 10 years ago almost.
Where was that earnings report?
I mean, he's not an
October
active
23rd,
guy.
2012.
Yeah, so here's that earnings report, right? And then it had taken this beat down. I think they pre-announced or something right here. I forgot what the news was in early 2019, but everybody and their brother hated the stock right here. And then when they actually announced, it was like, oh, well, you know, we talked about how we did bad, but here's everything we're doing right. And then basically overnight, you know, what is that? 6.5% gain. And then goodbye.
Yep.
Goodbye. I get it
I
though.
mean, it's an index in itself.
I get it though. A lot of people just, you know, not everybody's likes how Kramer is bombastic and, you know, all the hyperbole. Like I get it, and I'm not trying to be Kramer fanboy here, but I just think a lot of the shades overdone. We make calls all the time, right? Like we're saying we like this, we like that, whether it's on, you know, the TA report or on Stock Twits or whatever. We're not 100%, right? And
I know, but we also don't get paid on national TV.
True that. I mean, if I did, what would I be doing different? Nothing, right? I'd still be saying the things or somewhat of the things that I'm saying. So anyway, I'll get off.
Do we have a gap down in futures?
Do we? Hooray.
We're down 110 points on the
Woo, 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 woo.
NQs. We are well on our way to 0. But first, we're going to test the 3 p.m. low on Friday.
Everything gapped down. What's oil doing?
Oil is flat.
No, it's up.
So shall we talk about gold a little bit?
I was
Nick?
getting ready to go there.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to go there. I was doing that while you were on your on Apple. Don't trade it. Nick, are you in?
It's
You have
fine.
any more miners left? Are you all
No,
out?
I got nothing right now in the minors.
When I flashed through the chart, I kind of like that bounce off the 50-week there.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was definitely the spot to grab it. I'm wondering, I'm looking at the monthly, and honestly, as long as it stays above 170-ish, 172, I think, I don't know. Let's see. I'm kind of curious what kind of year the sucker has. Or what kind
I
of the
think
rest of
it's
the year
going to
it's
be,
got.
I think we talked about this, Nick, right? We said about 4 or 5 months of sideways from
Yeah.
that peak.
We're about
is-
3 months into that, or 2.5
Are we?
months
Is
into
it?
that.
That was February, right?
Yeah, we're 2 months in.
Yeah. So thinking like,
April,
we get
May,
one more test of like the 1830 level, I think, right around there on the futures,
Okay.
like, or 1800, which is kind of that support zone into that uptrend line.
Mhm.
And then we should start to move out of that. This is what I was thinking, which is after that peak, we get about 4 to 5 months of sideways, and then we take off.
I mean, I
They're ready.
can't help but see that.
I love the monthly charts on all of them. I like the weekly a little bit. The daily charts I don't really like much at all.
Gold and oil dailies are terrible. Like trying to figure out those charts are just, it's an exercise in futility, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
but if you have
Absolutely.
long-term perspectives like leaps or whatever you want to invest, how you want to do it or trade it, this is like I think you'll get out of this maybe 4 or 5 months, I would say, of the breakout.
Yeah, I can go along with that.
It could be longer. It actually could be much longer because of so like if you pull up the gold futures chart, Bags,
What's the symbol? I don't have it in my.
it's GC on Thinkorswim,
Yeah, I got it.
right? Like, and then go to the monthly view and then just crunch it all down and try to go back to the 1980s. Right. So like it's a very similar kind of cup and handle basing pattern. That was from 1980.
Oh yeah.
It is a monster, right? Like, and it had that fake kind of, we're gonna have this the cup and handle breakout, and then it fails back down to support and then launches up, right?
Yeah.
So we're in that process of kind of launching up, but we're in the sideways reaction right between like right around like 2008, 2009 time frame.
Yeah.
And then we took off after that.
I'm convinced that they're going to come out with some form of like, they're going to bring back the gold standard. They're going to link some gold to like some crypto coin in
Yeah.
some form.
So I'll share the chart on StockTwits. I
I
have
like
in
it
the
a lot.
past before for gold. But once it breaks out of that kind of that level, that's like, I'm not, because gold trades so choppy to me as a trade, I'm taking this when it takes out that all-time high, that 2100 kind of level.
Okay.
Because when it does, it'll be powerful up, right? Like
Yeah.
that. So like I hear that if you're trading it and you want to get in lower and then hold, I'm just not in that camp with gold because I've been burned on it a few times now in anticipation of the move. But when I started to look back at a longer term chart, realized that it's not clean until it kind of takes out that highs. It just
Yeah, I'm
keeps
with ya.
chopping.
Q's already a percent down. Well, it's trying to come back a little bit, but yeah, basically a percent down. In the futures, 0.75% on the S&P, Dow 0.75%, small caps 1%. So yay. Give us a flush. Flush that turd. Flush that turd. Flush that turd.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Flush it. Let's it's a horrendous chart.
Yeah, volatilities just doesn't have the what you would have seen on Thursday's down volume downside day. You should have seen VIX go bananas on that, and it just kind of didn't.
It didn't.
So that stuff.
So is that
right?
well? You touched on this just briefly. I mean, is that cause for concern, or does that give you a sliver of confidence if you're a bull?
In the last 6 months, every sliver of confidence I've been punched in the face.
In the nuts.
So yeah, and then kicked in the nuts. Yes, that's exactly
Rochambeau.
If you're looking at not VIX futures, but just the VIX itself,
yeah,
it's been making lower highs since January 24th. Right? The ultimate kind of, and it's by peanuts, it's by like small things. So you could either be breaking out or breaking down here. I think this week's CPI data is going to be a big part of what happens here.
When's that released? Thursday?
I think it's the 11th, which is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I don't know. 11th or 12th.
I can do a quick Google.
I got it. May 11th at 8:30, so Wednesday.
Got it. Well, guys,
yes,
another hour in the books. We did it again. As always, appreciate you, my two comrades. It's always a good time to get together and just talk what we see, what we think we know. But trade safe, trade smart. Nothing you heard here is financial advice. It's just three people's opinions. What we think might happen, could happen. Sometimes what we want to happen. But guys, thanks. I always appreciate jumping on with you. And last week's was a great show. I think this was too.
Thanks, Bags, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Shout out to all the moms. My 2-year-old's saying happy Mother's Day, mommy. And that's just like lighting up her world right now. So yeah, shout out to the moms.
Love you guys.
And we're out. Love you too, Nick.